welcome back to another chapter of English Literature Standard 4, chapter number 7, Gulliver in the Land of Giants. Yes, we all have heard about the story of Gulliver in the Land of Lilliputians, but today we are going to read the story where Gulliver reaches the land of giants. So this story is in the form of narration, okay? It's in a narrative form. So where the speaker narrates his own experiences through a story. Now Gulliver was a surgeon who liked to set out on voyages. What is a voyage? It's a long journey, especially by sea. So in the following story, he went on board his small ship, the Adventure, and set out to sail for Surat in the East Indies. So we can see Gulliver was coming to our own country. So let us read on to find out what happened next. Now the story is telling us about how Gulliver reached the land of giants, what happened in the land of giants, and how did he manage to come back to his own country. This is all that the story is going to tell us. So let's start reading the story. Okay. We left the Cape of Hope, Good Hope, and sailed through the Straits of Madagascar on our way to India. There, the southwest monsoon wind sprang up. This wind was furious and the rain fell in blinding sheets. So the wind was very fierce, very angry, and it was raining heavily, so nothing could be seen properly. Now luckily, we saw land. We sailed towards it and cast our anchor. So we can see the land over here. Gulliver with his crew can see the land, and they had cast the anchor to explore the land, and the sailors walked along the beach looking for some fresh water. I walked up the hill hoping to see people or houses from the top. I saw the country was rocking and bare, without trees or grass. Soon I was weary means tired, and turned back towards the ship. I was horrified to see that the crew was rowing away anxiously. They were being followed by an enormous man bigger than a giant. Enormous is huge. I turned and ran for my life. I scrambled up a steep hill. To my great surprise, I saw cultivated fields of huge sizes. The grass in them was 20 feet high. I also noticed that crop rose up to 40 feet like tall trees. Suddenly, a monstrous man strode towards me. I ran to hide in the corn. He called out in a gruff, roaring voice that filled the air like thunder. At this, several other great men came there. Now, great men is not men great by their work, but men great in size, huge in size. And these men were carrying a gigantic reaping hook. I crouched close to the ground. You can see he crouched close to the ground, but a giant picked me up in his palm. And what happened? His palm was at a height of nearly 60 feet from the ground. But the giant, when he picked Gulliver up, Gulliver was at a height which was nearly 60 feet from the ground. And I knew it was useless to struggle, because if I slipped through his fingers, I would die. The giant seemed to be pleased. Holding me in his palm, the giant ran to his master, the farmer. The farmer and his men watched my movements with fascination. Now, the farmer carried me. See how he's carrying Gulliver? He carried me to his home. Okay. And then he says, "See what I have brought." He said this to his wife and his daughter. They sat around the table and laughed so loud that my ears rang with the sound. So we can see here the farmer calls his wife, and then how they are having Gulliver kept on the table, and then they are fascinated by his movements and how they are talking to each other. So it was like the noise was very loud. Okay, so they sat on the table and they laughed so loud that my ears rang with the sound. And after dinner, they put me on a bed that was nearly 60 feet wide and over 20 feet from the floor. I slept because I was very tired. You can see Gulliver sleeping on a cushion. So the next morning, the farmer's young daughter stitched me. You can see the daughter over here, the farmer's young daughter. And what is she doing? She is stitching clothes. So the next morning, the farmer's young daughter stitched clothes for me and played with me. From her, I quickly learned their language, and I called her Glumdalclitch, which in their country means little nurse. I learned I was in a country called Brobdingnag. Now, the farmer thought, here is my chance to make some money. So, what did he decide? He decided that I'll take this little creature to the market and make each person pay to look at him. So the next morning or the next day, the farmer carried me with him in a box that had a little door and holes for air. People came from hundreds of miles. They were fascinated with the tiny human being who could speak and perform 100 funny tricks. I didn't like being treated like a monkey. Moreover, I grew tired because the work was tedious and the room crowded. So you can see here, Gulliver is kept over here, and how the room was overcrowded. He did not like to stay there. One day, the queen of the country heard of me and summoned the farmer. She was charmed by my manners and paid 1,000 gold coins and bought me. She also asked Glumdalclitch to stay in the palace to take care of me. I was a favorite of the royal family. The queen's cabinet maker made me a beautiful box with a bed, some chairs, a table, and a little cabinet for my clothes. I was so well looked after and quickly regained my health. Here I had some misadventures too. So one morning, Glumdalclitch put my box in the windowsill for fresh air. The door and the windows of my room were open, and it happened that on a plate on the table there was a piece of sweet cake. This attracted wasps. So we can see, sorry, I'll just scroll back. Yes, we can see the wasps over here. So, they were very big. They were as big as partridges, and they were humming louder than bagpipes. I was terrified and had to fight them with my sword. So you can see even Gulliver's huge sword is looking so small in front of the wasp. Now one day, the queen thought that I would enjoy a little rowing exercise. Soon, a boat suitable to my size was made, and it was fitted with mast and sail. It was then set in a trough of water. I used to row daily. The queen and the ladies of the court were happy watching me. Trough of water is a long, narrow, open container for animals to eat or drink from. But here too, I had an accident. Once, when on one of the court pages, page is not page of a book, but it is a pages means a young attendant. So when one of the young pages, while filling the trough, poured in with one of the buckets of water, a large frog. The animal climbed up over one side of the boat. It jumped over me and almost suffocated me. But I hit it with an oar till it jumped overboard. But my narrowest of all my escapes was from a monkey. Glumdalclitch had left me in her room. I saw a monkey as bulky as an elephant come through the window. I saw it tear everything into pieces. At last, it came and peeped into my box. I tried to hide, but it snatched me. Then, strangely, it began to gently stroke me. Just then, the door opened and Glumdalclitch came in. The monkey heard the noise and at once jumped out of the window, carrying me with it. Glumdalclitch screamed so much that soon a crowd gathered. Meanwhile, the animal fled to the roof. It sat there stuffing my mouth with nuts. At this, the crowd in the courtyard shrieked with laughter. Soon, ladders were got. As soon as the monkey saw that it was likely to be caught, it dropped me and fled away. One man climbed up and got me down. So one man had climbed up and that man helped Gulliver get down safely. So I stayed on the Brobdingnag for 2 years, but longed to go back to England. And at last I got my freedom from the bondage. How? The king and the queen journeyed to the south coast of the country. Glumdalclitch and I were taken along. I was carried in my box. Although it was comfortable, but at the end of the journey, I had fever. So Glumdalclitch felt that fresh air would do me good. So she handed my box to a boy to carry me to the shore for fresh air. There, I sat in the box gazing at the sea till I fell asleep. I was awakened by a violent jerk at my box. I knew I was being carried through the air. From the window, I could see nothing but the clouds. Overhead, I could hear a sound of the beat of wings. I guessed that it was a huge eagle who had swooped down and picked up my box. And suddenly I felt that I was falling down. After a minute, my box was floating in the sea. So you can see the box was floating in the sea. I slid open the roof and shouted, "Help! Ahoy!" roared a voice. It was a joyful voice, a joyful sound. You are quite safe and alongside the British ship," said the voice, and pulled me into the ship. So there was a ship nearby, and then after reaching this ship, he was pulled up. Gulliver was pulled up into this ship, and then what happened? He told the people his story. So I told them my story. They stared at me with disbelief. You can see how the people are looking at him with a lot of disbelief. They couldn't believe what Gulliver was saying. The story was unbelievable. But I showed them various things I had. The huge comb, the foot-long pins, and the queen's gold ring, which I wore in my neck. The ship reached England. To me, the people looked so small. And for many months, I feared of getting crushed under people's feet. So that's how Gulliver ended his journey from the land of giants. Thank you, children.